All right, guys, we are going to take your existing album art and turn it into something that you can use for more than just your album. This is motion graphics that you can use for your YouTube videos, for your canvas on Spotify, just anything that has to do with your single or your album that you can apply. We're going to make your artwork last longer than just the cover. So what I did here is, okay, so I got this track coming out. It's called NYAN. Right here is a pretty basic illustration of a cat. And then I add some banners here. This is for the title. Obviously, Nekro 1990 and Kyato. Then we got a speech bubble right here. NYAN. That's just the Japanese version of meow. Nothing fancy. And I added a little bit of texture to it to make it look like it's one of those old-timey designs. But so this is the cover art for the track. Now what I want to do is I want to be able to use this for more than just the album art. Okay, I want to use it to promote the track as well. I'm going to use it for my promotional stuff as well for online. This right here will be for Instagram stories. You'll see here the banners are a lot tighter together. Here is my cat. Here's the speech bubble. But see, the thing is now that we're getting really tight, we're getting into that vertical 1920 by 1080 frame that is used for Instagram stories. But I want to be able to, I want this to still look pleasing, right? I still want this to look visually pleasing. What I do is I make a path and kind of let him pop out so he's not covering everything. This is pretty easy. You just need to make a path right here on this guy. And then with a brush, you kind of brush out the parts you don't want. Oops. So these are the parts I kind of want disappearing from. Anyways, you do that and then you get this, right? Anyways, then I'm going to add my details here. So here's the title, Nekro 1990, NYAN Cat, my date, and then all the platforms that it'll be available on. So that's how we can recycle our album art here and turn it into some Instagram marketing for your stories. And then you want to leave this little space up here because your little icon is going to come up here and then the timeline. So you don't want to put anything too close to the top. Also, right here in this area with the YouTube and Bandcamp, this is usually the area where people are going to respond to you if they want to message you and stuff after you post whatever you post. But I don't think it's that big of a deal if you kind of cover this up. People know that this is where you can respond. But up here, you can't really avoid this part being covered, the top part of your design. So just keep that in mind. But yeah, now I want to take it a third step further. But first, let me show you. What I do is I isolate my elements. All right, so here's just the cat. What I do in Photoshop is I'll save each individual layer as a brand new Photoshop file, or you could do a PNG. This frame is just going to be a guide for me when I go into Adobe After Effects and keep things in place. So you bring these into After Effects, right? And now I've created this horizontal frame where I still have freedom to move around my subject. But yeah, so here, this frame right here, the blank Photoshop file, or it seems blank, but it's just a guide. So I use that guide to make sure that my banners are evenly distant on each side of the frame. There's my speech bubble and there's my cat. Now, the other thing too here is that I like to add a little bit of motion. I'm kind of going for an old school VHS look right here. So you can see here that there is some glitch happening on the banners in the back. That you just use a displacement layer and you add in some sample of VHS static and they will sample that for you. That's so it's called displacement matte. You add that into an adjustment layer and you place the adjustment layer above the timeline where you want that to affect. So I only want it to affect the banners, so I'm only putting it in the section where it would apply to the banners. My speech bubble and my cat, I don't want them affected by it yet, so I keep it above the displacement. And then let me get rid of this white layer. So what I do later is all of this stuff, I added a bunch of noise and some excess texture for the background, right? Because it was just blank in the back. But I want to give it that old school VHS look. So I just added a lot of texture to it. And here I add an additional displacement map, but now it goes over the entire frame. So the cat and the speech bubble are now affected by it as well. And usually, eventually what it ends up looking like, let me go ahead and bring this over here. What it ends up looking like is something like this. Yeah, so that'll be the effect. I also do a vertical version. Let me show you that before I show you the actual. So let's go here to the frame that's going to be vertical. So here it looks like a square, but that's because I needed to figure out the placement for everything for my cat, because when I actually do it on the vertical frame, you know, it's a lot more vertical, but I still need the room to understand the placement, how evenly placed everything will be in juxtaposition to each other. So here it's not as wide, it is more square, but once it's in a much more skinnier frame, that vertical frame, when they play together, it ends up looking like this. So you just got to figure out a nice balance between using your album art for vertical and horizontal frames so that you can make the most of it. This will be used for my Spotify canvas for the track when they come out on Spotify. And these will be used for YouTube and other video hosting platforms. So I'll have this available in many different mediums. So this is how you can take your album art and use it for multiple purposes. Album art is expensive if you're not the one creating it. I know now everyone is really big on using AI for all their artwork, but AI doesn't give you layers, at least not that I know of. So when you get your generated image, when you prompt in, you know, orange city, and you get a city made of oranges, it doesn't give you all the layers of those, you know, your artwork. When you make things from scratch, whether it's an illustration or photographs or 3D designs, in photographs, you can make paths and clip things out. That's kind of what you can kind of do that in AI art too. But the background for you, let's say you have a portrait of someone and they're in the, I don't know, some environment. If they're in a bedroom, you can make a clipping math of the person and then kind of AI generate the background again. But when you take photographs of something, you can stage a lot more than when you try to prompt something in AI. You can also direct your model or yourself to pose in a very specific way or have a very specific look. Because in AI, I'm sure if you want a specific emotion in your subject's face, it's a lot easier to just have a model, or if you are the model, to be able to control your own face or instruct the person who's modeling to pose their face in a very specific way. All I'm saying is, what I'm really trying to say is that if you create the work yourself, you have a lot more flexibility to take that artwork and apply it to all these different platforms that we kind of have to satisfy now. So if you're on YouTube or Rumble or BitChute or any of these video platforms and you want some motion graphics artwork for your tracks, because not only going to have music videos for every single song you make, instead of just having a still image of your cover art as the video canvas, you can actually take your artwork and give it some motion. You can bring some life to it in very simple ways. So whether it's illustration, whether it's 3D design or live photography, you can take your album art and repurpose it for multiple things. Anyways, this is my track, NYAN, available on all streaming platforms. Check it out. Also, if you are someone who is California based and you need a multimedia designer, this is what I do professionally. I am not cheap though. I just wanted to give you guys a guide so you can try to do it for yourselves. And if you have the budget, you can contact me. But like I said, I'm pretty expensive. And I mainly do photo, video stuff. The illustration stuff is something I kind of only do for myself. Illustrating for other people is kind of a nightmare. But when it comes to photo and video, you need photos for your whatever it is you need photos of. I'm your guy. If you need music videos or any narrative videos or commercial videos, I'm your guy. I'll leave a contact email in the description below. But if you want to do this yourself, this is how you can do it. If you're good at illustrating, take these layers, repurpose them, make them useful. Don't just use them for one single piece of art. You can take your illustrations and repurpose them for various different things. If you're a photographer, it's the same thing. You got all these layers. If you're a 3D designer, you have even more flexibility because you can also change angles and stuff like that. So the possibilities are endless. Anyways, this is Ghettoplex. Follow us on Instagram at ghettoplex.mp4, on Twitter at ghettoplex_mp4, and on YouTube at Ghettoplex. See you guys in the next one.